So, hey guys, what's up? Sorry for being late. I had some last minute business. Ichabod, are you there? Okay. Sorry for being late. I was helping hubby with some last minute stuff, so. Oh. Anyway, so how are you guys all doing? I see Gundog, Falcon, Optimus Christ. Hellos. Okay, so we have a couple things that I want to talk about tonight or whatnot. Ichabod had a subject from last week that we were not able to cover, and it has to do with parenting kids, and then talk about Trump's new biological gender bill or trans memo, and then if we have time, some other stuff, or I might take call-ins or whatnot. So, to kick off, how are you doing tonight there, Ichabod? Alright. Been kind of busy and a little bit tired, so I kind of feel like a vampire. So. Oh! Okay. Alright, there you go. Can we hear Mr. Ichabod now? Go ahead and say something, Ichabod.
Can you hear me now, Optimus?
Can you hear me now?
God. Goodness gracious. No coon here. Okay, but that's Falcon.
Okay.
It could have been.
Okay, can you guys hear him? That's what I need, a yes or no. Can you guys hear him?
I'm gonna have to wait for him to catch up. I hate to say it. Loud and clear. Okay, cool.
Okay, awesome.
Yep, Optimus says we're good, so we're good.
Okay, sorry about that. Like I said, last minute, and I forgot to turn my desktop audio on. So, yay! We can hear. Okay. So,
Yay!
To start off, what is it? Ichabod, you're a parent, right? Or I can't remember who.
I am not.
Neither am I. No, I couldn't quite remember. Before we bring up this first article that has to do with teaching your kids to share, or teaching that your kids don't always have to share here. Like I said, it's an interesting topic because, like, with growing up, kids are taught, oh, well, you always have to share your things, and it's just like, don't always teach them that. Teach them that it's okay to say no sometimes, because I've watched, like, my little nieces and nephews are playing with something, and then another one comes up, and they're made to give it over. It's just like, yeah, no, but let me pull up the first article here. Boop. Okay. So, because this is an article you gave me there, Ichabod.
Yeah, that was the one that I had gotten off of Facebook, I think? It may have been Twitter.
Yeah. Put this up. But okay, so let's read. My child is not required to. As soon as we walked in the park, boys all at once demanding. Oh, it kind of clipped up. That he
yeah, the article's below that.
Right.
Do you want me to read it?
If you want.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Alright. You were probably taught that sharing is caring, but is that really the best way to go? If you ask Mom, Alanya Kohlberg, she would argue that teaching them to always share is total nonsense. In a post that's gone massively viral, she gives a lengthy explanation of why her son isn't required to share, explaining it'll teach him to think independently and become a strong adult as a result. The post as followed. My child is not required to share with yours. As soon as we walked in the park, Carson was approached by at least 6 boys, all at once demanding that he share his Transformer, Minecraft figure, and truck. He was visibly overwhelmed and clutched them to his chest as the boys reached for them. He looked at me. You can tell them no, Carson, I said. Just say no. You don't have to say anything else. Of course, as soon as he said no, the boys ran to tattle to me that he was not sharing. I said, "He doesn't have to share with you." He said no, if he wants to share, he will. That got me some dirty looks from the other parents. Here's the thing though. If I, an adult, walked into a park eating a sandwich, am I required to share my sandwich with strangers in the park? No. Would any well-mannered adult, a stranger, reach out to help themselves to my sandwich and get huffy if I pulled away? No again. So really, while you're giving me dirty looks, presumably thinking my son and I are rude, whose manners are lacking here? The person reluctant to give his 3 toys away to 6 strangers, or the 6 strangers demanding to be given something that doesn't belong to them? Even when the owner is obviously uncomfortable, the goal is to teach our children how to function as adults. While I do know that some adults who clearly never learned how to share as children, I know far more who don't know how to say no to people, or how to set boundaries, or how to practice self-care, myself included. In any case, Carson only brought the toys to share with my friend's little girl, who we were meeting at the park. He only didn't want to share them with the greedy boys because he was excited to surprise her with them. And the next time your snowflake runs to you, upset that another child isn't sharing, please remember we don't live in a world where it's conducive to give up everything you have to anyone just because they said so. And I'm not going to teach my kid that that's the way it works.
Okay. So, I know that there's a couple of different responses here. Let me see. One guy put, this is by Travis Parker, "This is a very complex situation. You want your child to have the sense of sharing is caring, but you also want them to have the ability to stand up for themselves." And that's very true. A lot of kids do not know how to do that. "A child is still developing their ability to decipher between being accepted and not caring about being accepted. There's a balance to that, and not everybody knows that balance. Adults have a different mindset, not at all. By the time they are put in such situations, I don't know." This is a little bit more complicated than just the story at hand. Teaching your kids to be kind and strong at the same time can have a very gray area depending on the child's age and stage of development, to each its own, I guess. I know, like I said, with me growing up, I was always... My nieces and nephews and the younger children are always taught that if a child comes up and asks for their toy, I was like, oh, well, you can share, even though the child did not want to share and was clearly playing with it at the time. I've seen parents go, oh, well, you've played with it long enough, and it's just like, no, don't do that. Quit teaching your children that. Sharing is one thing, but like when they're younger, I don't know if that's a concept you really want to teach them, like when they're really, really little. I don't know. I'm not a parent, but I've seen it where it's not done right. Especially at the park. To me, that's just stupid. Why would you let your kid share their toys with other strangers at the park? I tell my child, like, keep your things to yourself, or make sure you keep them between you and your friend if I had a play date. Sharing them with strangers makes no sense to me, like, at all.
Yeah, well, that's the real odd concept that I don't understand. Like, this kid is a stranger to these children. Why are they approaching him? Didn't your parents ever teach you not to talk to strangers? I get it, they're kids, but, you know, that's one of the things, like some predators will use other kids to lure your kid in. Don't walk up to strange kids. I don't care what they've got. I don't care if they've got a fancy new lightsaber toy. Don't just walk up to some strange child. The parent might snatch you up. But regardless of all that,
go ahead.
Regardless of all that, like, they're not required. I don't have to give you a dang thing. I don't need to. Your kids are your kids. When I have kids, my kids will be my kids. And if I give my child a stuffed raccoon to play with, that's their raccoon. If I see your kid with it, I'm yelling at you.
I don't know, some parents are really obnoxious about the sharing thing. And here's another thing that kind of ties into that, sort of, is that when you have little kids and they come up, say, like, with hair clips or with markers or some sort of makeup, like, even as adults, because adults are expected to kind of respond and let them stick stuff in your hair. And, like, I had a little niece when she was younger try to stick clips in my hair, and I told her no. And she looked at me funny, and it's just like, well, no, Auntie doesn't want that stuff in her hair. And so she went to another relative, and they let her do it. And they're like, oh, what a nice uncle or aunt, and I'm thinking, like, why aren't you teaching your children that not everybody is gonna want that crap in their hair? Or like, you see pictures, and I understand some people are more lax about it, but you see pictures of little kids being allowed to like to scribble with makeup on their parents' face, and I understand some parents are okay with that. But like, if I have kids and they come up to me doing that, it's like, no, you're gonna either practice on your dolly or practice on paper, or be makeup, crowns, whatever. So it's just like, I'm not for, oh, if they just, I don't know. I don't know. It always irritated me. It's like,
wait a minute.
Go ahead.
I just get the concept that this sounds a lot like the parents of the other kid was trying to tell this mom not to teach her little boy that no means no.
Yeah, pretty much. That should share like everything, and that's which is not a realistic concept, because then as they get older, they're gonna want their own stuff. Like, there was, for me, growing up, I had stuff that I didn't mind sharing, but then I had other stuff like, well, no, I don't want anybody else touching this. This is mine. I don't care how pissy you get. You're not gonna be able to use this. This is mine. I have this for my own personal use. No. So, whether it be clothing, toys, whatever. I had a sibling try to borrow I have 2 lady suits for business or whatnot, or for weddings and things like that. So I had a sibling try to borrow my suit and got mad at me when I said no. I'm like, this is my only one. This is a really expensive suit. This is what I use for a lot of things. I don't think so. You're not getting it. You're not using it. And they got so pissy. It's just like, no. You're not getting it.
Yeah, it's yours. They can't just be like, oh, I want to use that, so you have to let me in. No, I don't. You can go take a long walk off a short pier. You ain't getting my shit.
Yeah, and that's when they start that concept as little kids, it kind of grows into adults. Like, for me, I was very much my own space, my own stuff. Some stuff I didn't mind lending out, like my video games and things like that. It's like, yeah, you can play it as long as you make sure to put the disc back in the jeweled case. I don't want to catch my disc out on the floor, otherwise you're not going to be able to play with it anymore. But like a strange thing, and kids do this, and it even develops into like teen years. One of the strangest things I never quite got is sharing clothes. To me, that is just fucking nasty. I mean, I understand.
Yeah, no, don't share clothes.
I understand, like, hand-me-downs and, like, make sure you wash it. Because I use thrift stores. I'm not scared of using thrift stores. I mean, it's a lot cheaper and you can find a lot nicer stuff, so... But, like, when you're swapping clothes back and forth, it's just like... No.
Alright, you wanna hear something really messed up?
What?
I was quite briefly in my high school a yell leader, which, you know, it's just like the boy cheerleaders. Because I didn't have any extracurriculars and I didn't want to do anything else. So, for some odd reason, nobody noticed when I was sitting in the locker room. I knew 2 separate girls who would keep loaning each other their underwear. And it's just sad. You don't loan that. I get it. You can swap tops, swap skirts, but not the undies, man.
I actually, and it kind of really grossed me out, I actually was made to let one of my sisters borrow a pair of my clean underwear, mind you, because I was on a camping trip, but still, I was just so grossed out. I'm like going...
Yeah.
No, this is not okay at all. So yeah, like I said, just like the nastiest thing to me is sharing clothes, and it's just like, yeah, no, that you gross. It's not happening.
Falcon Millennial comes in with, that is nasty. My little sister still tries to steal my shirts, and I live on my own.
And see, I don't know. For me, I don't even steal my husband's clothing, and I sleep with him, so it's just like... Granted, his stuff doesn't fit me, but I don't steal his shirts. I obviously don't steal his pants. I mean, I'm swimming in those. But it's just like, my clothes are my clothes. I don't want to wear your clothes.
You don't occasionally wear, like, the dress shirt just because it's big and poofy?
No, usually when it comes to, like, my dress shirts or whatnot, they have to be form-fitting. I do not like baggy dress shirts, like, at all. Shit drives me nuts, and to me, it just looks real shitty when you have them. So...
Well, yeah, you don't, like, wear it out as a dress shirt. You usually wear it as, like, a sleep shirt or something.
Oh.
You're not trying to look fancy in it. You're just trying to be comfy.
No, I mean, there are flannels, and then there are dress shirts. I don't wear dress shirts to bed. I have a flannel that I wear, but I don't use dress shirts as nightgowns. But yeah, with the...
Fair enough.
with the kids, and there isn't too much to talk about here, but yeah, with children, always having to share, I don't know, it's such a weird concept to me, because when you get older and you look back at that, just like, that doesn't make any sense. Sure, you want to teach them to be nice, but at the same time, you also want to instill boundaries when they're younger, because they have boundaries, clearly, with interacting with other people and how they treat mom and dad and their siblings, so why wouldn't you enact that as well? It's like, well, hey, these things are okay with sharing, and these other things, you can have boundaries, you can tell people no. But like I said, I don't get the concept of sharing with other strange kids or the parents that you don't know, because kids take off with stuff. Little kids can be thieves. They can take off with shit.
Oh, yeah, no. That's how I lost my He-Man sword when I was like 8.
Oh, news. Yeah, no, we've had... we've had stuff stolen from us, whether it be bikes, toys, whatever, so it's just like, you guys are teaching your kids bad habits, that it's okay to share with strangers, not knowing them, and possibly getting your stuff tracked. Makes no freaking sense, whatsoever. Let's see what the chat is saying. Optimus Christ, if anyone comes into my property without being asked or invited, their head is getting blown off regardless if friend or not. Yeah, I know a lot of people do feel about that in regards to like trespassing. Falcon Millennial, when it comes to his old shirts, it could be a good thing. Yeah, I actually have, my husband will sometimes ask me to wear his big baggy shirts because he finds it cute, which, I don't know. But
it's adorable. To be fair.
Yeah, I think it depends on the shirt. I don't think we have much more to talk about here. I'm obviously not a parent, so I can speculate all day long, but... I
mean, to be perfectly honest, I've like babysitted kids before, and I've given that like really bad... You know, I guess it's a bad impression to be like, no, don't share your video game with that kid. That kid is gonna run off with your game. Yeah. But that's because I just don't trust other people's kids.
Oh yeah, kids can be little shits. It doesn't matter how old they are. They will mimic their parents, and if they see their parents doing stupid or stealing, they will mimic that. And so,
well, a lot of the times it's because they just don't know any better. Like, especially when it comes to, like, stuffed animals and stuff. A lot of times little girls will walk off with each other's, like, stuffed animals just because, oh, it's cute. And they'll honestly forget. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, like, sometimes it's gonna happen. But I don't want them running away with one of these, like, new Nintendo Switch DS things. Because it's just too expensive to have to track down some kid.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Falcon Millennium says, here in Albany, if it's not bolted down, it's stolen. He also says, if you want to look sexy, wear one of those shirts and nothing else. Yeah, that's what, and he goes for him only. I'm like, yeah, my husband pretty much will sometimes get me to, wear one of those. It's just like, you're weird. To me, it's weird. But I do it anyway. But with that...
It is a thing. It is a thing that I like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't have an issue doing it. To me, it's just a, like, extra material hanging off my body is kind of irritating.
Well, it's because it's like an attachment. People do it with their girlfriends, too. Like, have you ever, like, the high school cheerleader chicks that would wear the Letterman jacket of their boyfriend?
Yeah.
It's the same principle, except for, like, a shirt that's slightly more comfortable than one of those felt jackets.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I don't think I have anything else to contribute to this topic. Do you? Any other thoughts, or...?
No, I'm good. Just, you know, don't trust other people's terrible kids with your Nintendo Switch, or Dad's gonna have to get pissed.
Oh yeah, no, brand new toys. I honestly, one more thing. I think if a child has a brand new toy, it's off limits. I don't care what friends are over, whatever. She's like, nope, that's his brand new toys. You don't let your kids touch them because I'm gonna snap at them. I don't want them broken. I bought them for him, not you.
Yeah.
So.
It's expensive. Keep it to yourself.
Oh yeah. The next thing I want to move on to, which is actually pretty big right now, I have mixed feelings on it. It has to do with, it's being dubbed the biological gender bill or Trump's trans memo. And pretty much what that entails, and I have a article, let's see, this isn't up the right one.
Did anybody ever find an actual copy of the memo? Because I know Maddie was looking for it.
I don't have an actual copy of the memo, but as the article I pulled up plus another one, it's supposed to make gender defined biologically, I cannot pronounce that word tonight, by the gender that you were born with at birth. So a lot of trans people feel like this is going to erase them. So and we'll go over an article or two here. The thing that has me worried about, and we'll talk about it more, is there a type of loophole for people who have already fully transitioned, like gone and did the surgery? And I'm gonna put this out here real quick. For this discussion, I'm going to put aside my own beliefs on the transgender stuff. Everybody knows it by now. I don't need to rub it in people's faces. So, but with this bill, there's some things that I want to talk about, like with the loophole, if there's already a loophole for people who have transitioned, full surgery and whatnot. Let me see with the live chat. Okay. Falcon, it's really cute when a girl wears her man shirt or jacket. Yeah, But okay, let me throw this one up there. Okay. There's two. I have one by the Washington, one Examiner, and then I have one by the New York Times. So let me throw this up here. Okay, so, like I said, I have... Huh?
I'm trying to find the actual...
Memo?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, here's the memo itself. So if you want to read the article, I can read out the memo.
Okay,
yeah. It's a PNG, so...
Oh, is there an actual URL to it?
What I'm seeing is a PNG of it, which is come through justice.gov. So it may force you to download it, but I can read it out.
Well, here, give me a copy of it. So
I'll send you the URL to it.
Yeah, so when we go to read it out, other people can watch it. Okay. So, like I said, this was by Washington One Examiner. The Trump administration's transgender memo isn't trying to erase anyone. I don't need that video. The Trump administration may soon spearhead efforts to define sex and gender according to biology, meaning whatever gender you were born with at birth, that is how you are going to identify as, that's how you are going to stay as. In a Department of Health and Human Services memo leaked to the New York Times, officials argue the federal government should adopt a definition of sex and gender on a biological basis that is clear, grounded in science, biology, objective, and administratable. So for example, and this is from what I hear, is when it comes to hospital patients, and if they're post-op or if they're pre-op or whatever, they identify as non-binary. Doctors now have one hell of a time trying to treat the damn patient because they have to find out whether this is an actual biological male or biological female or what they are. So because of this stuff, I will say it has made their job 10 times worse because they have to figure out how they are to treat them, because there's a new body, quote unquote, and then there's a biological body, which still needs its proper treatment despite the HRT. The move would essentially roll back changes the Obama administration made, which allowed folks to choose their identity and receive federal protections under Title IX. So you now have the third gender, which can be seen in Oregon. You have non-binary, you have the gender fluid crap, you know, all the Tumblr shit, and transgender, or not transgender, transtrender garbage going around, because there are legit, and let me use the proper terms here because I've been told this by a couple of people who have fully transitioned. There is transgender, and then there is transsexual. Transsexual are the people who have gone through their full surgery, HRT, whatever, and they are now, quote-unquote, completely the opposite sex. So, and Article 9, or not Article 9, but Title 9, for those of you who do not know, is pretty much protection against discrimination based on your gender, sexual orientation, now gender identity, I believe, thanks to Obama. According to the memo, HSS proposes that a person's sex be either male or female, meaning there is no third gender, there is no binary, there is no gender fluid, none of that crap, and match that of their genitals at birth. Now that's the point I do want to focus on and talk about, which we will here in a minute after this article. Sex means a person's status as male or female based on immutable biological traits identifiable by or before birth. The sex listed on a person's birth certificate as originally issued shall constitute definite proof of a person's sex unless rebutted by reliable genetic evidence. So, like, I believe that could apply to intersex people who have both genitalia or physical characteristics of both sexes, male or female, the memo says. The Obama administration gave allowances for the legal definition of gender in education and healthcare, letting individuals claim gender was a fluid choice rather than the sex they were assigned at birth. With the protections of Title IX in hand, transgender people sued workplaces and schools claiming discrimination on the basis of sex. Lawsuits abounded, and while many were decided in their favor, claiming they had been discriminated against and that the Title IX provides a basis for a transgender sex discrimination, some were not. Like, I do remember a couple of those got freaking ridiculous, like with the bathroom shit and especially in schools. There was lawsuits of a girl trying to use the men's room because she identified as a boy, even though she did not transition, none of that stuff, and she sued and won. It's just like, oh my lord. Conservatives have since argued sex was not the same as gender identity, and it's not. You can identify as whatever the fuck you want, but that does not establish your sex, and that conflating the two under the Obama administration allowed transgender people to enjoy the protections of Title IX when race, sex, and gender appear to be totally different issues, and they are. The transgender community is already responding to the HHS memo claiming the Trump administration is trying to erase them. The Transgender Law Center released a statement saying, in part, the memo was transparently a hate-motivated response to these victims. It attempts to rewrite years of progress achieved by advocates under the Obama administration. Here, written out plain, is their attempt to erase very existence as transgender people. This memo reveals that the administration intends nothing short of our destruction. The New York Times claims the new definition would essentially eradicate federal recognition of the estimated 1.4 million Americans who have opted to recognize themselves surgically or otherwise as a gender other than the one they were born into. Thoughts so far, Ichabod? There's one more paragraph, but... Hello?
Sorry, where are we at? I've got briefly distracted.
Oh, I was reading the article. It's...
I'm sorry. The one that you pulled up, right?
Yeah.
And the last paragraph?
Well, I had read through this other thing. I was gonna ask your thoughts, before reading the last paragraph.
Oh yeah, I have read it. I'm trying to go through the memorandum itself.
Okay.
And I'm only finding like here and there things to it because I've gone to the New York Times article, which is where they supposedly got a hold of it. Clicked on the memorandum thing that they are specifically talking about. But the memorandum that they're specifically talking about is from 2017. So this isn't new. And what it's saying, which I honestly kind of want to read out because it'll probably be help in the concept. So if that's okay with you, I can read that out real fast.
No, that's fine. Let me finish this last paragraph here. While transgender advocates claim there are several court cases to back up the policy Trump is trying to reverse, conservatives claim judges were merely making activist decisions. Furthermore, HHS claims they too are abiding by other court decisions, partially the rulings of Judge Reed O'Connor of the federal court in Fort Worth, Texas. He had held the Congress did not understand sex to include gender identity, something with which conservatives would agree. However, despite the existence of the memo and the subsequent uproar from one side and applause from the other, it's unclear if HHS will actually implement this change, and if so, how would this play out in real life? One thing is clear, if the Obama allowances are rolled back, simply defining sex as in accordance with a person's birth, it would not erase transgenders. It would keep them from receiving federal protection via Title IX, claiming that they are being discriminated against on that basis. Let me throw this back over here real quick and get the URL.
See, this is the thing that's getting me. Because I'm looking at the actual memorandum, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm seeing, they have horribly misconstrued.
Yeah.
And that's concerning. Like the actual article that the New York Times and the Washington Examiner seem to be talking about, it doesn't have jack all to do with this memorandum, the memo, because God, whenever you're ready, I'll read it out, and the audience can see what I'm talking about on this.
Yeah.
Because it was actually a pain to find this memo.
Yeah, I'm trying to grab it right now. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Okay, because my computer just decided to freeze on me.
Kind of cutting in and out.
Yeah, go ahead and
all right, so
go ahead and start reading, because it's gonna be dumb.
All right. From the Office of the Attorney General, Washington, D.C., 20530. Now, this was published on October 4th, 2017 as a memorandum to the United States Attorney's Heads of Department Components from the Attorney General. It's a revised treatment of transgender employment discrimination claims under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Now, I'm going to read this in its entirety because if I don't, there's a possibility for it to be misconstrued. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 makes it unlawful for employers to discriminate in the employment of an individual because of such individual's sex. 42 United States Code 2000 E2A. Prohibiting discrimination by private employers and by state and local governments. 42 United States Code 2000 E16. Providing that personal actions by federal agencies shall be made free of any discrimination based on sex. Title VII's prohibition of sex discrimination is a strong and vital principle that underlies the integrity of our workforce. The question of whether Title VII's prohibition on sex discrimination encompasses discrimination based on gender identity per se, includes discrimination against transgender individuals, arises in a variety of contexts. In a December 15, 2014 memorandum, Attorney General Holder concluded that Title VII does not encompass such discrimination, based on his view that Title VII prohibits employers from taking into account sex-based considerations. Memo 2 at 2, see also ID 1N1, defining gender identity in transgender individuals. Although federal law, including Title VII, provides various protections to transgender individuals, Title VII does not prohibit discrimination based on gender identity per se. This is a conclusion of law, not policy. The sole issue addressed in this memorandum is what conduct Title VII prohibits by its terms, not what conduct should be prohibited by statute, regulation, or employer action. As a law enforcement agency, the Department of Justice must interpret Title VII as written by Congress. Title VII expressly prohibits discrimination because of sex and several other protected traits. but it does not refer to gender identity. Sex is ordinarily defined to mean biologically male or female. See, e.g., ITSE versus Utah Transit Authority, Hiley versus Ivy Tech Community College, 7th Circuit Court in Banks, Sykes, J. Dissenting, citing dictionaries. Congress has confirmed this ordinary meaning by expressly prohibiting in several other statutes gender identity discrimination, which Congress lists in addition to rather than within prohibitions on discrimination based on sex or gender, another bunch of codes. Furthermore, the Supreme Court has explained that the critical issue the Title VII's text indicates is whether members of one sex are exposed to disadvantageous terms or conditions of employment or other employment actions to which members of the other sex are not exposed. On Cale versus Sundower Offshore Service Incorporated, although Title VII bars sex stereotypes insofar that particular sort of sex-based consideration causes disparate treatment of men and women, Title VII is not properly construed to prescribe employment practices such as sex-specific bathrooms that take account of the sex of employees but do not impose different burdens on similarly situated members of each sex. According to Title VII's prohibition on sex discrimination, encompasses discrimination between men and women, but does not encompass discrimination based on gender identity per se, including transgender status. Therefore, as of the date of this memorandum, which hereby withdraws the December 15th memorandum, the Department of Justice will take that position on all pending and future matters, except where controlling lower court precedent dictates otherwise, in which event issues should be preserved for potential further review. The Department of Justice must and will continue to affirm the dignity of all people, including transgender individuals. Nothing in this memorandum should be construed to condone mistreatment on the basis of gender identity, or to express a policy view on whether Congress should amend Title VII to provide different or additional protections. Nor does this memorandum remove or reduce the protections against discrimination on the basis of sex that Congress has provided all individuals, including transgender individuals, under Title VII. In addition, the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Acts and Violence Against Women Reauthorization Act prohibit gender identity discrimination along with other types of discrimination in certain contexts. The Department of Justice has vigorously enforced such laws and will continue to do so on behalf of all Americans, including transgender Americans. If you have any questions about this memorandum or the application in a case, please contact your civil chief or components front office. Now, does that sound like they're trying to remove their protection? Or like, hey, your law's written bad, fucking rewrite it?
Yeah, it's pretty much trying to get rid of a lot of complications that Obama brought on. Because I will say when he loosened Title IX or whatever, it caused a lot of people to go and attack others, whether it be businesses, doctors, schools. So it brought on a lot of stupid, so to speak. Oh, we got a couple people in here. So, but my only issue is, like I said, I'm putting aside my own views on the transgender stuff for a second tier for this discussion, simply because the bill defines, or the memo pretty much wants people to be classified by sex by the genitals they were born with. Now, my only concern is because what's going to happen to the people who have fully transitioned? I'm talking about full-on body op, not just partly, not just HRT, not just wearing the clothes of the opposite sex, but like full-on transition, hormones, surgery, and all. I mean, it doesn't say how that's going to tailor in, like, at all.
Oh God, man, I don't know. The memo itself and the article itself seem to be very contradictory, because it's coming down to this point where what the article's saying that the memo says, I can't find it in the memo, and where, yeah, maybe Republicans aren't exactly 100% fond of the concept of, you know, transgender and whatever, but when it comes right down to it, it's a willful misinterpretation of the memo. Because what I'm getting from it, and to be fair, my interpretation could be completely wrong, but what I'm getting from it is it's the Department of Justice saying, hey, rewrite this law so we can apply it more properly, instead of, like, not being able to because gender is not mentioned in the per se.
Yeah. Let me read a few chats here responding to this. Let's see. Gundog says that's how it should be. That transgender equals pre-op, transsexual is post-op. So more clarification on the two terms there. Falcon Millennial, I know it was reclassified in the DSM-5, but I still see it as a mental illness. Just look at the suicide rate is extremely high. I will say two things here. Is it barely passed, got out of the mental dysfunction records, if that's the best way to put that. I heard it was like 2 votes over or whatnot. It almost was a tie. And as far as like the suicide rate, because this has to do with hormone levels, and I've said this before on my channel, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not any of those, but reading up enough on just the effects of like birth control and just the imbalance of hormones in general. Anytime you have a hormone imbalance that is not natural for your biological body, you're gonna deal with weight gain, you're gonna deal with depression, you're gonna deal with all sorts of shit that you don't want to. And HRT, hormone replacement therapy, if you actually read up on what it's actually for, not what now they're now applying it to, HRT is for elderly people who can no longer produce their natural hormones at all. So they've turned HRT into a transitioning mechanic or whatnot. So when you have a, say for example, a guy who wants to transition into a female, the HRT is really jacking with the hormone balance, so he's gonna struggle with depression, he's gonna struggle with suicide, possibly weight gain, increased hair loss. This is stuff I've just read up on, and I encourage people to do the same. Don't take my word for it, go read up on the stuff yourself. But injecting fake hormones, whether it be birth control, HRT, if it jacks up your natural balance, biological balance of hormones, you're gonna have one hell of a time. That's why post-op transsexuals have the highest suicide rate, and it even goes up higher, because I know that it's when they're pre-op, that number's lower than post-op, and there's a reason. Hormones really play a part into that. So, and that's not like dig, I'm not making fun, that's just biology for you. Let me see. Transgenderism, as well as all trans anything, isn't anything more than people being unhappy with the way they're born. It's a way of trying to control what's out of one's control. And you know, that is true or whatnot. I will say, and I've never had to walk this road, and I can't even begin to wrap my brain around it, how awful it must be to feel like you don't belong in your own body. I can't even imagine what that's like. That's gotta be fucking awful. I've talked to a few people who are either struggling with that or have struggled with that, and I can't even wrap my brain around it. I really can't. I just, God. Nick9572 says, well, they will use anything to push their narrative. I will say that there is a narrative going on, and I think I talked about it last stream or the previous stream, to where they're trying to blur the lines between gender. Like you now have people pushing the pseudoscience of, oh well, some men can get pregnant, or some women can get pregnant, some women have penises, some men have vaginas, and God, you hear that crap from Riley Dennis and other people who preach that rhetoric, and it's like, no, but yeah, no, they have been trying to blur the lines between men and women for quite some time. And that does play a part into how the nuclear family operates. You have gender roles. So they've been trying to do this shit for a while. And it sucks. But it is what it is. Sleepy Sheepy Lady says, New York Times is a weird news source. I have not found them trustworthy or consistent for a while, to be honest. And that is true, is, New York Times, HuffPost, Washington Post, a lot of those will either exaggerate what's really going on or paint it with a really negative brush when it's the exact opposite. So yeah, I don't trust New York Times myself. I go through several articles to look at one thing to see what's actually going on. CNN, don't ever fucking read anything by CNN. And if you do, make sure you have 2 other articles on standby to see what they say. Compare it for there. Trying to catch up here. Falcon Millennial, I think they can't account for mental illness for federal employment. I don't know anything about that. Sleepy Sheepy Lady, the definition of gender and sex has been really fluid under the Obama administration, and very little of it was set in stone or made as actual laws, which complicates things. Yeah, it does, because Obama allowed the defining features of sex and gender identity to be completely just kind of wishy-washy. We now have a bunch of people, transgenders, as a lot of us like to freaking call them, have made just a complete and utter shit show for people who are actually transsexuals, for people who just, they feel they need to transition to be comfortable with their own body, and they just want to be left alone. But because of all this gender politics crap and transgender shit, their life has been made even worse because I hate gender politics so much. Falcon. Oh no, dude! It's so dumb because now you have people, like I said, pushing the pseudoscience of what biology. You have people, men to women or male to female, thinking they can now get pregnant or they want to give birth. Was something going around, and it used to be on my channel. I had to get rid of it over a year ago. How they now want to install wombs inside of biological men who transition into women, and from what I read, it takes 9 different medications just to keep it in there, so the body does not reject it and go into overdrive. And it's just like, you can't. It is impossible. Having a womb in that entire female reproductive system functions so much differently from a guy's reproductive system. You can't do it. It's not doable. I don't care how much chance we have, our hormones work so much different, and there's different hormone levels. Like, naturally for a woman, you have to have progesterone, you have to have estrogen, and then you have testosterone, which is very little bit. But the majority of the hormones that operate the womb and whatnot is progesterone and estrogen. So, and then I think there's androgen, there's another one that starts with an A that also works in there. But yeah, it's not doable.
Androgen.
There you go. I know it has a function, I don't quite remember what it is, but yeah, main dominant ones are going to be estrogen and progesterone, and they have to be balanced. And when, say for example, when a woman gets pregnant, her progesterone goes completely up, causing her hair to stay in more, building up the uterine wall, and so like, I don't care. It's wacky science. It is a waste of freaking money, in my opinion. Use that science for women who cannot get pregnant. I can see that science going for women who can't get pregnant due to their wombs being infertile or something like that. Use it for that. Quit wasting it on this stupid.
If it's a pathway to, let's say, increase the concept of women who can't have children, if that's a road to that, then I'm willing to accept it.
Yeah.
It's just like the trans thing. Like, I'm not gonna be that guy that's gonna be the, that's gonna say, well, you can never. I'll accept it as long as you don't try to change biology. Like, you leave sex alone, I'll give you gender, because at this point it's already lost. At least let's protect what biological sex means.
Yeah, and they're even trying to change that. The left and the gender politics, the transgender umbrella, they are trying to change biology itself to say, oh, some women can have penises, some men can have vaginas. It's just like, no. I don't care what you guys are smoking.
I've been waiting a long...
No.
I've been waiting a long time to say this in this particular concept. Hashtag not all leftists, but a lot of them.
Yeah, no, and it's not. There are some that just go, no, away with your bullshit. No, go away. Let's see. Obama fucked more than you can imagine during the whole gay marriage thing. He made the DHS and through them the USCG bend over backwards for the gays. I will say there was a big thing when gay marriage became law. Like a lot of churches and pastors got freaking jumped on. When that was first made into law, saying, well, you have to marry us or you're discriminating, blah, 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 the law says this. And that's what that Title IX comes into play now, because Obama loosened the boundaries, if you will. A lot of people got into trouble for just either upholding their beliefs. Now, I will say, there were some actual discriminatory pricks in that mix, but a lot of them are like, hey, man, this is my belief. No. So,
well,
go ahead.
That actually comes to the concept of like the cakes thing. Like, do you remember the whole hullabaloo about like, I don't want to bake a cake for a gay wedding? Okay, well, there's a very simple concept to that. Go to a different bakery.
Yeah.
Because you cannot force a private business to go against their own held beliefs, even if you know, you say they're discriminating against you because of your sexuality. They're a private business. They have the right to refuse service for any reason, and they don't even have to tell you. Yeah. They're a private business.
Your cat wants to chime in. No, and that's true.
The cat does want to chime in.
There's actually a couple businesses. The guy in the Colorado bake shop. He won his case. There's another cake shop that was forced to close down because they're like, well, either you serve them or shut down. She pretty much gave them the finger. I'm like, fine, I'm gonna shut down. And she moved it from a public business to a specifically online private, meaning she made sure to where she was protected, to where she could reject people because it was online. And she goes, no, I choose my clients. If I don't choose you, you go away. So she had to move strictly to online services. Yeah. And then there was a couple people who it was a graphic company that I believe they won their case because some people tried to come in and get them to print certain things on shirts that had to do with the LGBT, and they're like, no. And then I will say, because this released a double standard, because and the guy was being a prick. This is an example of a prick, to where you had someone who was of the Christian faith, who claimed to be Christian, went into a pro-LGBT cake shop and asked for a specific verse to be put on a cake that said homosexuality was a sin. I believe it was out of Leviticus or whatnot. The lady told him no. He tried to sue, and the case was awarded in the cake shop's favor. That was a double standard, because it's like, well, so you're being sued for not putting this verse on a cake, and you win. However, the cake owners who refuse to put certain messages on cakes or bake for certain things get told, oh, well, you either do this or I'm going to sue you, or I'm going to take your ass to court and wipe your entire business out. So it's going, even though this guy was a prick, it still presented a double standard, which was really messed up. Let's see, catch up with the chat.
Well, when it comes down to it, private businesses should be allowed to set their own terms, because it's a private business. Don't get me wrong, they shouldn't be allowed to, like, employ child slave labor, but they have the right to refuse service to anybody. And to be fair, yeah, there's a lot of places that are like, we don't want to serve people who are LGBT. And that's their prerogative. They just lose that LGBT business. That's their punishment. But if they're going to get sued for it, then you're denying several people who might start a business but have some sort of widely held belief or even a religious belief that don't make no sense. Like, I won't work on a Thursday for no apparent reason. Yeah. And then just say, because my God says no Thursdays. You still have to respect that, because it's their business, man.
Yeah, and here's the thing with the K thing, because I've gotten into several different arguments. Let me catch up with the chat before I go off on this real quick. Sleepy Sheepy Lady, the New York Times article has also been criticized by some transgender groups because of it misconstruing things, such as Ichabod brought up. Such as the ID thing, IDs are on a state level, so the federal changes wouldn't affect those. It depends if they were enforced, but yes, each state now has, like, say for example, Oregon has it in their state law that there is now a third gender that appears on the identification. So when you go to apply for like a driver's license or a state ID or CDL, whatever, there are 3 options. There is male, female, and either non-binary or third gender. I haven't seen an actual Oregon
Neither.
ID. Oh, it's neither? Okay.
Just go with neither.
But let's see. Dylan Tilbrook, it's a mental disorder. Even Blair White, a trans woman, admits it, but there isn't a cure. It is, I will call it a, and I'm not being mean, it is a social dysfunction. It is, you don't feel like you belong in your body. To me, it's an identity crisis. Like I said, and I said earlier, I can't even begin to wrap my head around that, not feeling like you belong in your own body, and just, I can't even imagine that. With all my struggles, it's just like, I cannot pinpoint that, like, at all. Zeogold, Riley Dennis is the best thing to happen to anti-trans in a long time. Well, Riley is a fruitcake. Riley is not even a transsexual. He's a transgender. I'm sorry. With Blair White, I consider Blair White to be a transgender, simply because Blair refuses to get the post-operation. Blair has gone and done his face, but
the bottom surgery.
Yeah, Blair's not transsexual, transgender. But there are legit transsexuals who they want to be left alone. They want to do their own thing. They want to make themselves happy, even though I don't agree with the decision. But they just want to be left alone. They don't want to be involved in all this shit. I actually know an actual transsexual who does not want to be involved in this garbage at all. They don't even identify, they don't even talk with the LGBT groups, they stay far away from this shit. I don't blame them. Falcon Millennial, the gay marriage thing really fucked with us when I was in USCG basic training. Basically, worship the gays, because politics. Yeah, there was for a while with the military. And I remember this was in 2009, 2010. There was an Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and I can't remember if that was removed or established by the Obama administration, to where if you were gay, you didn't have to tell people, which honestly, in my opinion, it shouldn't be other people's business if you don't want it to be. But from what I heard of the older generations who were in the military, if they found out the guy was gay, because there weren't a lot of women in the combat situations back then, if they found out the guy was gay, it's either we're gonna beat the crap out of him if you don't get out of here. There was one story I was told by a now vet who they were having a medical examination and the guy was in there and he was clearly homosexual and he was just like oogling everybody, and the other guys that were taking the examinations like, get him the fuck out of here or we're gonna beat the shit out of him. So just like, yeah, don't come in here doing that crap. But yeah, that's just one example. I'm not saying that was okay, but now I think the Don't Ask, Don't Tell is pretty much privatized as like, well, it's none of your business whether I'm attracted to men or someone of the same sex. None of your damn business, which I agree, it's not.
Yeah.
Let's see. Nick 9572. I feel really bad for people in society that actually suffer from real gender dysphoria. Yeah, and so do I. Like I said, it is a concept I cannot wrap my brain around. I can't even. It's gotta be real horrible though. Probably feels like you're trapped in something that you can't get out of. Sleepy Sheepy Lady. Identity politics have messed up the political scene for decades. It makes politics frustrating. It makes it hard for people to just be people instead of part of a group of men. And that's true. Everything is politicized. People just can't do their own thing anymore. They just can't be left alone. They have to be part of some group or the other, and that's really irritating. Let's see. Oh, he's responding to someone else. Nick9572 again, especially in today's society where people treat it like it's a joke. Oh, hold on, I'm missing context there. Oh yeah, no, and that's because of transgenders. Like I said, the transgenders have screwed up a lot of crap, and just from what I remember seeing, a lot of that gender politics stuff came straight out of Tumblr. I do feel bad. I really do, because like I said, they're legit people who just want to make themselves comfortable in their own body, and they want to be left alone. But because of all this other shit, like people like Riley Dennis, or queer kid stuff, and all those other fruitcakes, they now have it very, very hard.
I think Lindsay's just a lesbian.
Well, Lindsay also teaches
like if I recall right, I think Lindsay's just a lesbian.
Yeah, but if you listen to what she teaches, she does preach the same shit as Riley, and she takes it to a more deeper and nuttier level than Riley does. Like, some women have, penises. She pushes that shit, too. She also pushes the binary crap. So no, she's just as bad as Riley, if not worse. Her stuff targets children, which I think her entire channel is still on YouTube Kids, and it's just like, oh my god, what the hell? So yeah, no.
She has, as a note, she did admit that the, how she did it was not the best way to do it. She was just trying to be educational, and mainly her application didn't come out as planned.
Well, and here's the thing, too, is just something about her is she pushes because she brought a drag queen onto the show, and it's just like, kids don't understand this. Now, I had to, what's her face? Lacey Green. Lacey Green did a video on the drag queen stuff, and if I remember correctly, was just calling it dress up, and it's just like, you are fucking out of your mind if you were saying that this is just dress up, because talk about like that little kid that is being a drag queen and is dancing in front of all these people with money being shoved down his clothes. Yeah, with money being shoved down his clothes. That is a legit YouTube video. I forgot what the little kid's name is. It is a little boy, and he is so brainwashed. He's
Lactatia.
Gone. Yeah, and it's just going this like, you are pimping him out. Strippers do this shit. They dance in front of people and have money shoved down their clothes. Like, he had dollar bills sticking out everywhere going, what are you doing to this kid?
Jesus.
God. And his parents were, like, legit, like, extreme left. It was so bad. Let's see. Let's finish this up. These comments. I agree with you on that. I think transgenders and extremists have turned transgenderism into a laughingstock. It's disgusting and non-scientific. Yeah, it's caused a lot of unwanted issues. Private businesses and entities shouldn't have the rights to deny service to people taken away. America's definition of freedom has become more and more perverted as time goes on. In my opinion, yes, everyone has a right to run their businesses how they see fit and make sure that it follows the law. Private businesses have the right to turn away people that they don't want to serve. I worked for a movie theater that had this, retail has this, it could be shitty, but this is something that should not be taken away. And if they don't want to serve a particular amount of people, people are going to spread the word, and that business is either going to lose money, or they're going to change their policy to bring back patrons. As a business owner, it's your right to say the customer can be wrong, and that is true. Now, with customer service, by your managers decide, well, the customer is always right. It's like, no, they're not. My throat is getting tired. As such, you can...
Takeo actually makes a good point on this. Anything is racist according to liberals if you're not politically correct. You are automatically an awful person. See, that's why I changed my name to Coon of Doom on YouTube, because apparently Coon is a racial slur. I don't understand it, but that's kind of what I went down the road of. I was like, I'm not putting up with this. My avatar is a raccoon. I'm going with Coon of Doom. It's a good pun, dang it.
Yeah, let's see. Sorry guys, I won't be able to read all of these. That'll take kind of forever. Someone mentioned that Bill Nye the Science Guy. Where'd that go? They brought poor Bill Nye, the bachelor degree science guy, into the gender debate back in Bill Nye Saves the World on Netflix. Yeah, no, he pretty much contradicted his previous lessons, because they actually showed him. And I grew up with Bill Nye the Science Guy. And to see him do like the gender politics crap was a big turnoff. Granted, I was turned off from him already because he faked his suicide to make creationism go away, and that's a whole other monster But it's just like, oh my god, how far you have fallen. And that cringy ass song that they had that lady sing. Ugh, that was so bad. What was it? Fading Dark. Apparently Riley is having the surgery, Blair isn't. Oh, okay. I don't watch Riley, so I wouldn't know. But according to Fading Dark, apparently Riley has announced that he is going to be full transsexual. Let's see what else. Queer kid stuff got on the bad side of the ANCAP. Oh, wait, no, ANCAPs. Bad side of the ANCAPs, you know you're doing something
like Dapperton and stuff.
I think any of that gender identity, gender politics, if you have to target that crap at kids, there is something freaking wrong with you. Their kids don't understand any of that stuff. They don't understand what sexuality is. Now, I do know, because this was floating around Twitter. I don't remember the child's name. I believe he was 8 years old, 7, around that age. He came out as gay to his parents. Now, I've seen many tweets. Go ahead.
Chambers, not to be crass, but I have to pee. I will be right back.
Okay, that's fine. No, go. But, considering, this kid came out gay to his parents. He was, like I said, between the ages of 6 to 8, and he, I guess, got bullied at school to a point where he committed suicide. I see that kind of bothers me, because, like, why would the kid know what that is? But I've heard, like, many stories, like, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, other people claiming this, that they knew that they were attracted to the same sex when they were, like, little. Which I see, in my mind, they would have to hear that term from somewhere or get the concept from, like, an adult or something. Let's see. Fading Dark. Riley's going through with sex reassignment surgery. Yeah, that's becoming an actual transsexual. Let's see. Falcon Millennial.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that.
That was quick. Holy crap. Falcon Millennial. It's almost as bad as the abortion that the new Magic School Bus. Yeah, I don't watch the new Magic School Bus. Takio. Bill and I faking Stru was the final straw. Okay. I quit after his attention seeking. Yeah, no, I was actually, when I learned of his suicide, I was like, really? And then it came out like maybe a few days later that he faked it to make creationism go away, and that it just, in 1,000 years people are gonna forget all about it. It's like, no dude, you're dumb. Where did you lose your brain? Tumblr feminists are the worst. Yes, they are. D-Rock Devon Archives. Hello! Let's see. Identity Politics ruined the sequel to one of the best horror movies around. Yeah, no, I will say that Identity Politics has, like, crept into every freaking thing, and it's either destroyed characters, destroyed stories, and it's stupid. But yeah, how do you feel in regards to, like, all this, Ichabod? I mean, what are your thoughts in regards to, like, what do you think this memo is gonna do? Do you see it, like, hurting more people, or I don't know. I have mixed feelings. Like I said, if there's no loop for people who are actually transsexual post-op, I don't know, that might cause a lot of problems. What's your take on it?
Well, what I'm looking at the memo, is not necessarily saying they're going to strip protections for these people, because there's various other laws that continue to have the protections for people who identify as transgender. So I don't think the memo is going to do diddly squat, but what I am concerned about is publications like the Washington Post and this other one, the Examiner, I think it was.
Yeah.
Taking something so simplistic like that and misconstruing it to the level where anybody's going to panic about it. There shouldn't be a mass panic between a memo. Like, if they were passing a law that says, we're gonna burn the transgender folk, maybe, then I would be worried. But what this memorandum looks like is specifically, it's like, hey, this law is not written in a way that has any protections for transgender people. So maybe write it better. So the memo itself isn't going to do diddly squat. The problem that's going to arise is if like, any ability to trust journalism tanks further. Because we already don't trust, CNN, MSNBC, Fox on occasion. Like, all of these places are losing more and more credibility. Where are we going to get the news from if we can't trust the people telling us the news?
Yeah, no, and that's true too, and that's why, like, when I was reading into it and looking at it, I was like, well, it is good that biological sex is going to be defined and stayed there, but at the same time, like I said, for those people who are post-op and they just want to live their lives, they feel the need to go through the transition or the operation is comfortable for them. That's their decision, life, liberty, and all that. So what is this bill going to do to them? Because they have, like you said, the fear-mongering. I just don't know. There's too much stuff up in it. It's not properly defined just yet, because what we read was Title 7, not Title 9, but it applies to the same thing. So it just, I don't know. It's still up.
Well, that's what the memo was.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the entire memo was about, was Title 7. And whereas, like, they even got the freaking which memo it was wrong. They linked to the memo in their article, but they still got the wrong memo. And what really irritates me is, yes, there should be a legal definition of sex. And the only reason I'm saying that at this point is because everything's just going to get muddier and muddier and muddier until we have legal definitions for every word that could be applied to discrimination, because they're going too far, too fast, too downhill.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, they've been trying to blur, just from what I've seen with all this freaking gender politics crap, they've been trying to blur the lines between men and women for a while, making everything gender neutral, and it just, like, as you could see, men are constantly attacked, or toxic masculinity. Yeah, no, this has been all happening for a while. There's a mixed bag going on, and all the variables are just blurring the lines more and more, or they're trying to. For me, what I want to see with this memo is, yes, to have a definition of sex. You have, how would I put this? Men, obviously, penises, women, vagina, obviously, and then I want there to be, like, for me, just because of freedom to live your life how you choose, some sort of, like, clause in there that does talk about post-op, actual transsexuals, for people who have actually fully transitioned male to female, their post-op body be considered that of a natural biological sex. They like male to female, full operation, whatever, HRT. So yeah, but
so did you want to take call-ins?
Yeah. If you guys, let me post the link. I should have done that.
So while we're prepping to take call-ins, just as a concept for the audience about how ridiculous the concept of the Tumblr gender, transgender stuff has gotten, allow me briefly to explain to you what circumgender is. Now, this is a Tumblr gender, but I would like you to guess what circumgender is.
Does it have to do with being circumcised?
It doesn't have anything to do with being circumcised, but everybody's asked that. But if you're in the chat, go ahead and give me a guess on what circumgender means. I will wait on that one, because I'm sure that this is going to be mildly entertaining for what it actually means.
Okay, so there's that. And then there's a link to come in. If you guys do want to do call-ins, there is a room called the hallway. Let's see. What is the chat saying? I don't think anybody's
not a whole lot. Alright, so what circumgender means... Oh, my guess for circumgender, just to get shot down, I thought it was what Chambers was thinking, and all I can think of is circles. No, it is also not being a certain gender based on circumstance of a situation. What circumgender is just for as an example. I was born a cis male, right?
Right.
Chambers. Okay. So I was born a cis male. But one day, I up and decided to change my gender to circumgender and identify as a trans male.
Repeat?
That's it. I'm a cis male, born cis, but one day I have decided to call myself a trans male. That's all it is.
That doesn't even make any sense.
I know, right?
That doesn't make any sense.
That's all it is, though. That's it. You're just saying I'm now trans. Nothing else, no other quantifier. It's just, I was born a dude, but I don't want to be not oppressed. So let me now be a trans dude. That's all it is.
Wow, that's... So I guess that applies also with cis female, that they're now a trans. Oi. Just oi.
That's exactly what it is, sleepy sheepy lady. It's just being attention-seeking and self-labeling. That's all it is.
She says, I'm so confused. It's okay, I'm confused too. Oh my god.
There was a hashtag for it on Tumblr. That's how bad it is.
Tumblr needs to go die in a fire. Tumblr is just cancer.
We have Falcon Millennial in the hallway.
Yay. Okay, hold on, I'm trying to move up. Let me unmute you, do not talk yet. Come on. There you go, you are unmuted. There, Falcon.
I was about to actually hit disconnect, but because I was like, oh crap, I probably shouldn't have.
Oh, you're fine. But so what are your
The
thoughts?
only reason a minute ago, and
Go ahead.
my thoughts on this is, we need to stick. I know to the left to lose their mind because it sounds incredibly simple, but some things you just gotta keep simple for very good reasons. I think it should just be based on biological sex.
Is that like period?
What specifically, out of curiosity?
No, I mean just period. Is like you are male, you are a man. That is how you will be defined. We're not gonna do some crazy stuff for you.
Are you talking about specifically legal documentation or just how they present themselves?
I would say legal documentation having to interact with the government. Now, in personal interactions, like friends, family, maybe some small businesses, it's when you and that other entity, whether it's a business or your friend or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Chambers, I hate to go back to it, but you said earlier you thought that the don't ask, don't tell was still the standard operating procedure in the military.
Yeah, isn't that what Obama established, and was pretty much protection against any soldier who was gay? Do I have that right?
That actually was.
That's what
that
he
actually was
repealed.
Clinton era.
Oh, that was
Yeah,
Clinton.
it was actually repealed under Obama. Yeah, it was Clinton, and it was the only, I think, even decent thing he did in regards to the military. But Obama, basically overnight, it became a worship the gay guy, and I saw this heavily at Cape May. There's a certain petty officer there that is very, very obviously gay. Holy crap, you can't look at him and think he's anything but gay. But you say, someone can lie out there behind about how you said blah blah blah, whatever, it will be taken as gospel. Doesn't matter. And I spent 4 nights of ramp because of someone did that. So not only that, but majority of the military in every single branch is majority conservative. It's I understand that that should not be a factor, but it's kind of not a good idea to alienate the majority of your military.
Well, it's somewhat the environment, too. The longer you're going to spend in the military, the more patriotic you're going to become. And unfortunately, when it comes to patriotism, you're going to lean further to the right because of how far the left is going. I mean, you seem like to be able to talk to me, but I'm technically left. I'm just not as far left as Stalin.
Yeah.
I would just say, well, it's a good thing we can sit down and have a conversation.
Well, of course, it's because I'm not fucking insane.
Yeah.
You don't have that mental illness.
We also have Annie and Dammy in the hallway.
Yeah, I was curious.
Go ahead.
Okay. Do you have any other thoughts before I switch you out?
No, I don't. That's all I really wanted to say. You have a good night.
You too. Thank you for coming on. All right. I'm gonna bring on the next one.
Well, thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna switch people out. We're gonna bring on Anne. Hold on. Okay. Oh, freaking Discord. There you go. Okay, hold on there, Anne. Okay, you are live, Anne. Oh. Are you there, Anne?
Did she mute herself?
I think so. Are you shy? Let me see if she says anything.
Oh, and now she unmutes.
Okay. Oh. Either she is leaving or...
Oh, and now she's muted again.
Yeah, it's the... Okay, are you there, Anne?
Sorry, connection issues.
Oh, no, you're fine. I just wasn't sure if it was Discord or whatnot. But so, what are your thoughts on all this? I know me and you have personally talked about stuff in regards to, like, transgender and whatnot.
Yeah. Personally, I feel like people should just be allowed to be people. I don't feel like people as a whole should be defined by politics or laws in general. I feel like their rights should be defined thoroughly by laws, but what they can do with those rights should not be defined by laws exactly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there shouldn't be a double standard between
Yeah,
certain
exactly.
criteria.
There shouldn't be a double standard at all.
How do you feel about the
Am I cutting out? Sorry.
No, you're fine. We can hear you. How do you feel about like the memo and like the fear mongering and like what are your thoughts about in general? Like, are you worried about anything?
Personally, having done a bit of research on this after reading the article, because I had it brought to my attention on DeviantArt, it really only affects, if it is only affecting Title IX, like the article says, which the memorandum doesn't say, which is a weird little thing, but if it only affects Title IX, then basically nobody who's not a minor or in school will be affected, because Title IX is primarily dealing with education.
Well, it was Title VII. Yeah, the
Yes,
article.
and Title VII is more employment-based, isn't it?
Yes, it's mainly based on employment discrimination.
Yeah. And Title VII really awards, well, less awards, but gives general anti-discrimination rights to groups of people, specifically veterans, people of color, etc. I don't feel like changing the definition of sex is going to massively impact the transgender community.
I don't think it's so much changing the definition as putting a solid legal definition on it.
Yes, because there hasn't really been a solid legal definition. Like, under the Obama administration, it was mostly just
implied,
opinion-based almost, and it was not a very solid system allowing it to be very easily misconstrued or misused. And I feel like this memorandum, in full context, after having had it read, I feel like the New York Times is completely, or at least somewhat, misconstruing what it's about.
Yeah, and that is a serious concern, especially in legal matters, because when it comes down to it, this is very much the situation of how we never had a solid legal definition of, let's say, racism. And now it's become this weird amalgamation of power plus privilege plus what color you are, plus what area you grew up in, plus what country, but not the white ones. And that's just, it's become an issue. And if we had a legal definition of racism set forth, put into law, then that would not be as much of a problem, which is why I'm not really having a big conniption over the concept of maybe legally defining what biological sex means.
Yeah.
I feel like if we legally define biological sex, it's going to be a benefit, not a hindrance to actual transgender people.
Yeah, I will say,
personally.
Like I said too, is especially because I've had conversations with people in the medical field. They talk about how they have to ask multiple questions, and I've even read articles of some doctors, they're confused on how to treat their patient that comes in because they identify, say, like a female, but they haven't gotten the operation, and so it's just, and they're taking HRT, and it's just like, well, how do we treat them? Because we can get into legal problems if they're not identified properly. And so some doctors like, no, we need to go off of the freaking biological sex because we have to treat the biological part. We can't, the identity stuff doesn't mean anything to a doctor unless you're doing the post-op and HRT. But even then they have to still treat the biological body, because the biological body has its own natural rhythm. No matter how much HRT you do or post-op, that body is still going to respond to the biological factors it was given to at birth, despite what you do to it. And that's what a lot of people of the left and LGBT do not understand. And it's just like, there is no changing the biological functions you have. You can put hormone blockers, you can have all this post-surgery, but there is no changing the biological body. It has to be treated as it was born. I mean, so that's just one example of keep a lot of people out of legal trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, with doctors especially, there's been a lot of controversy. Like, a lot of the people on Tumblr will act as if doctors refusing to see transgender patients is entirely based off of personal bias, when in some cases they just don't know how to properly deal with it, and most people don't take that into account, which is frustrating.
There's she was in the chat, I think she's gone now, but her name's Fading Dark. She's a legit, I believe, certified nurse, whereas they asked...
She's a nurse, yeah.
Yeah, they asked, and she, there's 3 to 4 questions that they ask in regards to, like, with their patients. Are you pre-op? Are you post-op? Are you biological male? Or are you biologically female? So those are just 4 identifying factors alone they now have to ask because this gender politics stuff that's crept in. So, and it's, I don't know, to me it's too much trouble. Just stick with biological sex, and then if you have people who are already post-op, there should be a clause somewhere to where it's not abused, but it's like, hey, already post-op, they legally, by law, are the sex that they transitioned into as a transsexual. So oh, she is an RN, registered. Is that a registered nurse? I don't know.
It's a registered nurse, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, actually, are you real quick? Are you able to come on and explain a few things in regards to, like, the medical field, in regards to dealing with transgender patients? If not, I'm not gonna push you, but you would have a lot more.
We do have Dammy who did come in first.
Okay.
But
Here, I'll hop
it
out.
would be nice to have him in Fade.
Okay. Alright, Anne. Oh, thanks for coming on, Anne. There she goes. Okay. And she's gone.
Thanks, Anne.
Okay, hold on. Dammy, let me unmute you. You are now unmuted. You are now live.
Hi. Hi.
Okay, Fading Dark says we need to know post-op or pre-op. They have specific needs. Yeah, if they're on HRT. Like I said, if you're after Dammy, and I'm going to keep this to 2 hours, so we got 15 minutes here. If you're able to come on for just a few, that'd be great. If not, I'm not going to push you. But what are your thoughts on this, Dammy?
Trans, like, controversy that I think a lot of people I want to say you're right that a lot of people are transgenders, I guess you call them.
Mm-hmm.
I also think a lot of men do it to attract girls, or a lot of girls would do it to attract other girls, and a lot of people are gay, not because they're gay, but because they want to attract someone else or pretend to be something they're not because it's cool. And I do really believe that. I think a lot of people are gay or really aren't comfortable in their own skin. It's just a lot of people just say they are now because it's the cool thing to do.
Yeah, that's why you use the term transgender. It's because they're using it as a trend rather than actually having these needs or disorders.
I've met a lot of people who, and you want to know what's ugly is so many people lie about it so much they actually end up believing their own lies.
And that's actually what leads to a lot of people eventually detransitioning, is they have convinced themselves so wholeheartedly, but then after their actual transition, they have this this regret that kind of eats at them. And that is one of the things that's one of the reasons why I don't approve of like the concept of hormone blockers, that kind of stuff, because you're too dang young to know what the heck you're talking about just yet. Mm-hmm. At the very least, wait till like 18, 21 to where you can at least make legal decisions for yourself. Because yes, it's past the possibility of using hormone blockers, but you're also going to have that opportunity to really understand. And I'm not saying it's all a phase, but if it's a phase or not, because you do not, under any circumstances, want to make something so gigantically life-changing. It's like signing up for a credit card when you're 13. It's not going to work out well.
I would be a hypocrite if I said don't get plastic surgery, because do you really think I look the way I do on my Facebook because I'm natural? No, I've had a few surgeries myself. Mm-hmm. So I would be look, if someone wants to get their dick cut off and they're like a consenting adult, let them do it. I just live with the consequences.
It's like I'm all for a way to... Oh, go ahead.
I'm all for that. See, my hair's gonna fall out. I'm gonna have a bunch of poked holes in my head. I'll deal with that when it comes. Because I did get a hair transplant.
A way to think about it is, let's say you are 14 and you wanna get a tattoo on your damn forehead, and that tattoo is just a penis that says "fuck the police" on it. Yeah, you shouldn't be making that decision at 13. It's gonna affect the rest of your life.
I agree. A lot of decisions do.
Yeah, and that's what kind of makes.
But not only did I get a hair transplant. Not only did I get a hair transplant, I also got a tummy tuck to get rid of the skin from when I was obese. But I want to say the surgeries I got I liked and I'm happy with right now, so... Because I really did want them, I do not regret them. Yeah. Because I didn't like being bald and I didn't like having extra flappy skin.
Yeah.
But the surgeries I got would be an improvement. It's like, what's the improvement or benefit of getting your dick cut off or having your boobs taken, or...
You know, it really depends on the concept or the context. There are people with genuine dysphoria issues, and the concept of even just looking at it is a detriment to their mental health. But when it comes down to the rock-solid point of it, you are not supposed to make that decision at 10 to 18. Because if you're going to do that, it is a permanent issue with your life. You're always going to have to live with that, even if you regret it. And that's why, whereas it may be a controversial subject, when it comes right down to it, I don't want somebody making that serious decision and then regretting it later in life. Because it does eliminate the possibility of procreation and several other possibilities. I mean, if you want kids in the future, at the very least, be 18 to where you can, like, freeze some of your sperm. Because... you don't want to be that person that regrets it, because that's going to hurt you in the future. And there's a lot of suicide in the transgender community, and I believe that's very unfortunate.
Yeah, I will say with the real quick, with Fading Dark, she's asking, is there any questions, because she's not able to come on due to headphones. She's asking, do you guys have any questions in regards to, like, the medical field? She's a registered nurse, so she has to take a lot of care when dealing with post-op, pre-op, transgender people. So it's like, is there anything that you guys want to ask her real quick while she's here?
I would just say ask her opinion on hormone blockers, like the puberty blockers stuff, because as an RN, she would have more of a knowledge about the permanency of that.
Yeah, so like ask like what her opinion is, or how she feels about it. Or...
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go, Fading Dark. How do you feel about the hormone blockers? What are the complications you see with it when it's done at such a young age? Things like that. And while we are waiting on that, Nick9572 says, those are not surgeries that literally changing your way of life. Literally are. Yeah, and that's true. I think he was just using an example. But in regards to like the transgender stuff, something too is, and this isn't always the case, but like the person's walk of life. Why do they feel like they don't belong in their body? Is there something that could have happened to them when they were younger? If you look at some of the side effects of child abuse, sexual abuse, and things like that, this is only just a few factors. This is not the ultimate factor here. But you can have people who come out as gay, or they feel like they're of the opposite sex, they don't belong in their body because they were destroyed to such a deep level. So that's some factors there, like, and I don't feel as though people really take the time to examine these. Like, for example, you have counselors, the up-to-date counselors now, to where a person will go and say, I have gender dysphoria, and they are recommended to get the surgery, but I feel like other factors are not examined. It could be their life, could be the way that their parent treat them. It just, there's so many variables that can go into why the gender dysphoria exists in the first place, and I feel like those are not examined thoroughly. And so people are put through their surgery that later regret it.
Well,
hold on, she's
to be fair, like, yeah, she answered, but when it comes down to it, like, that's something I might want to like ask Tranime about like the actual, like, I don't know, the criteria concept, because I know that she's had to go through it. So I don't know exactly what the criteria is, because I've never experienced gender dysphoria.
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable in my body, but when it comes down to it, like, she would be the kind of person to ask about that, because she's more likely to have the answers on what the actual procedure is to get to that place of getting the bottom surgery.
Okay. Let's see. Dylan Tilbrook, I know that Tran Anime still has yet to go through the actual surgery. I remember her mentioning it to someone.
Tranime?
Yeah.
Tranime went through the bottom surgery.
Oh, is Tranime an actual transsexual? I thought I could have swore like a tweet or whatnot.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Tranime is an actual transsexual.
I wasn't sure because I thought I saw something that.
No, I'm not offended on, but that's like why I say to ask her, because like, she's been through it. She knows the process.
All right. Let's see. Dylan Tilbrook, maybe you should ask Blair White. Blair White isn't getting the surgery. Blair White refuses. Let's see. Fading Dark, absolutely not. We prefer to wait until after puberty, and most doctors won't do it on children. She also says we don't know the permanent effects on kids yet, because it's considered unethical. We believe it has to do with the physical brain and how it functions. She also says, confirm what you said, that Tranime is post-op. Also, Falcon Millennial, did you retract that message yourself, or was that something YouTube did? Because there was something there, and I don't know if you deleted it yourself, or YouTube is in my chat right now.
It will say message removed by Google moderator if it's a Google person removing it. So you will get an indication that it's them. So they would have had to have retracted it themselves.
Okay, I was just making sure, because it was like, yeah, stay out of my chat, Google.
Yeah, that's why I'm letting you know.
But we're getting down to the last 5 minutes here. We're on schedule. Huzzah! Okay, Falcon Millennium says I did. But yeah, it's just like I said.
Well, anyway.
Go ahead, Demi.
Well, anyways, is there anything else you'd like me to add about this comment? Like, any controversies you want to ask me about?
No, we're just sticking to these subjects with the trans memo.
Do you have any like other thoughts on anything we've talked about today?
Well, you know something? I'm trans rich. I need money to be lit happy.
I deafened myself. God dang it. I managed to mute my own headphones. I'm sorry.
He was saying he was needs money to be trans rich. But yeah, this, like I said, I have mixed feelings on this, simply because I feel like the people who are post-op should be left alone, and because they went full, they went through the entire surgery, they need to be kept with their opposite sex transition. So I don't think that should be taken away from them.
Like I said, I think it might be a good idea, like maybe if we start talking like transsexual or transgender topics again, we maybe ask Tranime if she wants to come on, because like I said, she's gonna know a lot more than us because of you know, she's been through the shit, as it were.
Oh yeah, definitely. We don't have enough time tonight, but this is going to be a reoccurring subject because this is not going to go away. Whether it passes, this is going to be something that's going to be lit for the next week or so. So I don't have an issue talking with Tranime on it. But we'll have to save that for next time possibly, and what goes on with this trans memo. So, but
yeah, I can ask her if we decide to talk about it again next week.
Trans wrench too. I like that. Freaking Dylan Tubbook. I'm trans wrench too. Falcon Millennial says, remember, we are just beginning to understand the brain. We don't even know the efficiency of a neuron. Yeah, there's the white matter versus the gray matter, but that's a whole other ball game. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to end it here. Thanks, guys, for coming out. And for those of you who see the processed show, give me your thoughts down below of what you think of this build. Oh, careful, Dammy. The articles... I'm actually going to mute Dammy real quick. The articles that we read through are going to be in the description below. So go have a look, and we'll definitely be keeping an eye on this depending on the developments next week. We can definitely try to get trans anime on here for more information. Because like I said, I don't know jack beans about that sort of thing. But anyway, y'all have a good night. Okay, so that wasn't too bad. That was a little bit. Let's see, and we are off air. I killed the desktop audio. Oops.